fantastic. Hi, Clint.
Good. How you doing?
Pal, I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad.
You are not doing too bad. You're fantastic. So you are...
Clint Eastwood thought he was making a bold statement about leadership, but when he dismissed younger women in politics, Jasmine Crockett gave him a lesson he didn't see coming. Nobody expected fireworks at 8:12 in the morning. The segment was supposed to be civil. That's what the producers kept repeating in the green room. Keep it lively, but no shouting matches. Please. The show was called American Square, one of those morning political panels filmed in Dallas, with oversized coffee mugs, polite smiles, and carefully timed commercial breaks. The stage lights were already too warm when Jasmine Crockett took her seat, her hands resting firmly on her lap. She wasn't nervous. She didn't do nervous. Not when she'd spent years in courtrooms and community halls, in offices where people called her too much before they even let her speak. She wore a navy blue blazer with sharp shoulders and a single gold pin on her collar that read, "Vote." Her hair was pulled back tight, not a strand out of place. She looked alert, thoughtful, but calm. The producers loved that. Then there was Clint Eastwood. He walked out with the kind of quiet confidence that fills a room before he even says a word. He was in charcoal gray, a blazer that looked like it had seen better fights and didn't apologize for it. His handshake was dry and firm. He didn't smile, not out of rudeness. He simply never did. He'd been invited to talk about the importance of maintaining traditional American values in education and law enforcement. He wasn't new to these debates, and while he rarely raised his voice, his words carried weight, sometimes too much weight. To the host, Daniel Everett, a neutral guy with the personality of a weather app, it was the dream pairing. Young and old, rising star meets living legend. Liberal bite meets conservative calm. The show opened with generic patriotic music and a wide shot of the studio. Then, the small talk started. "So, Congresswoman Crockett," Daniel began, "you've been vocal lately about redirecting federal funds into education and housing initiatives. Some would say that's a bold shift from where this country's been headed the last few years." "It's only bold if you're not struggling," Jasmine replied smoothly. "But if you're a teacher working 2 jobs or a vet sleeping in his car, it just sounds like common sense." She didn't flinch when she said it. The audience, a mixture of locals and tourists, let out a quiet hum of approval. Clint sat still, arms crossed loosely, eyes squinting just a bit. He waited until Daniel turned to him. "Clint, you've always emphasized strength and discipline. Do you think we're coddling the next generation?" Clint leaned in a little. "I think we're confusing kindness with leadership. This country was built on hard decisions, not handouts. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. It wasn't hostile, yet," but Jasmine looked over at him, steady. "Or maybe we finally remembered what compassion looks like." Clint didn't answer. The tension was there, thin but present, like fishing lines stretched across the table. In the control room, one of the producers leaned forward in his chair. Another said, under her breath, "This might go viral if it breaks right." But outside that studio, across the country, millions were watching with coffee cups in hand, some cheering Jasmine's every word, others hoping Clint would shut her down. Nobody knew that within the next 15 minutes, what started as polite disagreement would turn into a cultural moment. But something in Clint's next sentence would flip the entire conversation on its head. Daniel shifted in his chair like he could sense the storm coming but didn't know where it would hit first. "So," he said, glancing between them, "how do we bridge this growing divide between generations? Between the people who built this country and the ones trying to change it?" Clint responded first. "You don't bridge it by tearing down everything that came before you." His voice had that familiar sandpaper tone, like he was narrating a western, slow, controlled, measured. "You listen. You learn from those who've been there. Too many of these new faces in politics think every idea before 1990 was a mistake. They talk about change like it's a virtue in itself. But change without backbone is just noise." A few audience members clapped, not loud, but deliberate. Jasmine didn't move right away. She let the silence stretch out just enough to make everyone uncomfortable. Then she said, "Backbone without compassion? That's just cruelty." She didn't smile when she said it. Her eyes stayed locked on Clint's. The host, sensing a viral moment might be creeping closer, leaned in slightly. Jasmine continued, "You're right. We should listen to the past. We should study it, and we should learn exactly where it broke people, where it failed people. Because that's where the truth lives, not in nostalgia, not in muscle memory." Clint's brow furrowed slightly. He opened his mouth, but Jasmine didn't stop. "You talk about strength like it's inherited, like age gives you automatic credibility. But strength isn't just surviving hard times. It's refusing to accept them as normal." The energy in the room changed. Not loud, not chaotic, but focused. Viewers at home leaned forward. Even the crew behind the cameras exchanged glances. Daniel tried to lighten it up. "Well, that's a perspective," he said with an awkward chuckle. "Let's shift gears a bit. Clint, earlier you said something in the green room about leadership not being what it used to be. Could you expand on that?" Clint nodded slowly, then glanced at Jasmine as if checking whether she could handle what he was about to say. "I said," he began, "that too many people in leadership today are more concerned with feelings than with facts. They talk tough, but fold the moment someone accuses them of being unfair. And I meant what I said." Then he turned toward Jasmine, not fully, but enough to make it clear he was directing this next part to her. "You're smart, no doubt. You've got presence. But leadership, real leadership, it doesn't come from hashtags or protest signs. It comes from sacrifice, from knowing when to shut up and get the job done. The younger generation doesn't get that. They think being loud is the same as being right." The audience gasped lightly. A few claps, a few murmurs. The air got tight. Jasmine blinked, but her expression didn't change. Clint leaned back in his chair, looking almost satisfied, like he'd said what needed saying and was done with it. But Jasmine stayed still. Her fingers tapped once on the side of her chair, then silence again. Not from hesitation, but from calculation. Behind the scenes, a producer whispered, "We need to let this breathe. Don't cut to break." Daniel looked back and forth between the two, unsure whether to speak or let it play out. At that point, millions of people watching at home were no longer thinking about breakfast. They were locked in. What came next would define not just this interview, but how people remembered both of them for years. But Jasmine wasn't going to respond with volume. She was going to hit back with precision. There's a difference between confidence and condescension. And in that studio, the line was starting to blur. Daniel cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Congresswoman Crockett, would you like to respond?" Jasmine didn't rush. She didn't glance at the camera or straighten her jacket. She just spoke, quietly, clearly. "I've never confused being loud with being right," she said. "But I also know silence has rarely served people who look like me." Clint turned slightly in his chair, his face unreadable. Jasmine kept going. "And while we're talking about sacrifice, what exactly are we calling that these days? Because I see a lot of people clinging to old ways and calling it bravery. I see people who want the credit of building something, but none of the accountability for the damage it caused." Daniel looked uneasy now, but he didn't interrupt. Then it happened. Clint took a breath, then said, "Look, I respect anyone willing to serve, but let's not pretend like politics isn't theater now. I came from a time where you earned respect by keeping your head down and doing the work, not by turning every disagreement into some emotional meltdown on Twitter." He paused, then added with a smirk, "Especially when it's coming from women trying to play a man's game." The audience went dead quiet. Even the camera operator dropped his hand slightly. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. It was the kind of moment that feels like the floor gave out beneath everyone. Jasmine turned her head fully toward Clint. No expression, just focus, like she had just entered a completely different mental space. "You think I'm playing?" she said, calm as ever. "Is that what this is to you? A performance?" Clint didn't respond. "I don't know what game you think we're in," she continued, "but I'm not auditioning for anything. I didn't get here because I made noise. I got here because I fought for people who weren't being heard. And the fact that you call that emotional, that's not just outdated, that's dangerous." No one moved. The studio, for once, had no script to fall back on. Jasmine leaned in slightly. "You say leadership isn't what it used to be. Maybe that's a good thing. Because the kind of leadership you're talking about, the one that shuts people down, especially women, especially black women, has done enough damage." She said it flat, not dramatic, That's what made it cut deeper. Clint's eyes didn't move, but his silence spoke volumes. Daniel tried to step in, but it was too late. The moment had landed. On social media, clips of the exchange were already being clipped, posted, dissected. A teenager in Fresno tweeted, "Jasmine Crockett just folded Clint Eastwood like a lawn chair. Live." A professor in Tulsa called it the most needed political moment of the year. But in that studio, all that existed was the stare between two very different definitions of power. But Jasmine wasn't finished. Not yet. She could have raised her voice. She could have fired off 100 talking points like bullets. But that's not how Jasmine Crockett operated. She looked at Clint, really looked at him, and then turned slightly toward the audience, her voice steady. "You know what bothers me?" she asked, her tone still low. "Not the insult, not the assumption that I'm playing a man's game. What bothers me is how normal that kind of thinking still is in rooms like this." No one moved. She adjusted the microphone on her lapel. "You spent decades playing roles where you were the last honest man in the room. You stood for justice, for grit, for something real. And now, here you are, calling women emotional because they don't stay quiet the way you're used to." She paused, not for effect, but to breathe, to let it be what it was. "You think the world went soft? That we're whining because we want rights you never had to ask for? But what if I told you that this generation doesn't lack backbone? What if it just finally grew one?" The camera zoomed slightly in. She didn't flinch. "Let's talk about sacrifice, since you brought it up. My mother raised 3 kids working 12-hour shifts in a hospital where she was called girl until she was 50. My father couldn't afford to see a doctor for 20 years because he had to keep the lights on. That's sacrifice, not silence, not stoicism. Sacrifice is choosing other people's futures over your comfort." Clint opened his mouth, then closed it. "I didn't come here to be liked," Jasmine said. "I came here because every time someone like me walks into these rooms, we're told to calm down, to wait our turn, to lower our tone. And every time we don't, we're told we're being too emotional, too loud, too much." She shifted slightly, letting the silence carry her next thought. "Maybe it's not that I'm too much. Maybe it's that you've been too little for too long." A collective gasp rolled through the audience. No clapping, no shouting, just stunned attention. Daniel was staring at the teleprompter like it might save him. It didn't. Clint leaned forward now, jaw tense, voice lower. "You think that kind of talk builds bridges? You think calling people small wins? Votes?" Jasmine didn't blink. "I think telling the truth scares people who've lived too long without hearing it." Another beat of silence. Then Jasmine turned to the camera, something she hadn't done until now. "There are girls watching this at home who've been told to quiet down in every classroom they've ever sat in. Women who've been told their ideas were too aggressive, their ambition too loud. And if one of them sees this and realizes she's not crazy for standing up for herself, then this conversation was worth it." The room stayed still. Behind the scenes, one of the camera operators whispered, "She just flipped the whole interview." Daniel took a breath. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we'll talk about recent polling numbers and what they mean for the upcoming primary season." The network cut to commercial, but no one in the room moved for several seconds. Jasmine sat quietly, sipping from the mug in front of her. Clint rubbed the bridge of his nose. Daniel stared at the floor. What had started as a debate about policy had turned into a defining moment, not because someone yelled or stormed off, but because someone finally said what too many people were too used to swallowing. But just when the cameras turned back on, the real storm started, outside the studio. They came back from break like nothing had happened. Daniel's voice was cheerful again, but it sounded thinner this time, like a worn-out drumbeat. "Welcome back to American Square. We're here with Congressman Clint Eastwood and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, talking policy, politics, and the pulse of the American voter." Jasmine kept her posture calm, chin slightly lifted. Clint sat back a little stiffer now. The friendly edge had vanished from his tone. Daniel read off the next question from his cue card. "Let's pivot to public opinion. Polls show a growing divide between younger and older voters on issues like police reform, climate, and economic justice. What do you make of that gap?" Clint didn't even look at the card. "I think the polls say what I've been saying. Young voters are living in a fantasy world. They want everything fixed without doing any of the heavy lifting. Real change, that comes with time and pain and compromise, not hashtags and moral tantrums. He said moral tantrums, like it was a term he'd been waiting to drop. Jasmine took a breath through her nose, not deep, just steady. Then she said, "You call it fantasy, I call it clarity." Clint turned his head toward her slowly. This generation isn't asking for miracles. They're asking for dignity, and they're tired of begging for it. She wasn't performing for the camera. She was just talking the way you talk when you've had this conversation 100 times already. They're not throwing tantrums. They're refusing to accept excuses. Daniel tried to bring it back to neutral. But Congresswoman, wouldn't you say compromise is part of the job? Isn't that what leadership requires? She looked at him and nodded slightly. Compromise is important, but not when it's between truth and comfort. Not when the people making the decisions are the ones least affected by them. For the first time since the comment, Clint cut in. "You act like we didn't fight for anything. Like everything good that exists now just fell into your lap." His voice had a sharper edge now. Tired, frustrated, defensive. "You think it was easy fighting through cold wars, recessions, riots? You think we just sat on our hands? We bled for this country. We buried friends for it." Jasmine didn't interrupt. She waited until he finished. "I don't doubt you bled," she said quietly. "But bleeding isn't the same as building something everyone can live in." That landed harder than she intended, or maybe just as hard as she meant it to. The audience sat frozen. Nobody checked their phone. Nobody coughed. She continued, "What I'm saying, Clint, is that pain doesn't entitle you to permanence. Just because you suffered doesn't mean your way of doing things should go unquestioned forever. This country doesn't owe anyone the comfort of never being challenged." Clint exhaled sharply. "You think you're the future? Fine, be the future. But don't disrespect what made it possible." "I don't," she said, "but I won't pretend all of it was right either." That's the difference. At that point, even Daniel gave up trying to redirect. The final moments of the segment were awkward. A few throwaway lines about upcoming elections. Clint stared into the camera with the expression of someone who couldn't wait to get out of his chair. Jasmine stayed composed, almost still. The credits rolled, but what aired was only half the story, because once the show ended, the internet turned it into something no one in that studio could control. It took less than 10 minutes after the show ended. Clips started flying across social media before the guests had even left the studio parking lot. A 26-second video of Jasmine saying, "Maybe it's not that I'm too much. Maybe it's that you've been too little for too long," racked up 300,000 views in under an hour. People reposted it with captions like, "She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. Others weren't as polite." On a popular Reddit thread, someone titled the post, "Clint Eastwood just got dismantled on live TV by a woman who didn't blink once." And it wasn't just one demographic. People from all sides had something to say. Young activists praised Jasmine for standing her ground. Retired veterans, especially those Clint had long represented in his image of American masculinity, split down the middle. Some defended him. Others admitted, privately, then publicly, that maybe the world had moved past the old rules and it was time to let it. By noon, hashtags were trending. Crockett clapped back, "Not your game." #leadership. On YouTube, reaction videos popped up faster than the network could upload the official episode. Creators broke down her posture, her pauses, even the way she never once looked rattled. A TikTok with side-by-side footage of Jasmine's response and a clip from one of Clint's old westerns ended with the caption, "The cowboy met his match and she didn't even draw." It hit 1 million likes by dinner time, but it wasn't all praise. Conservative commentators were already framing it as a publicity stunt. One panelist on a late-night cable show said, "This wasn't leadership. It was performance art designed for social media." She didn't win a debate. She just went viral. Still, even that criticism gave the moment more oxygen. Meanwhile, Jasmine stayed quiet. No follow-up interviews, no retweets, no statements. Her silence was an avoidance. It was power. While pundits scrambled to define the moment, she let it breathe on its own. And that unsettled people more than any mic drop. By the next morning, op-eds were everywhere. Some framed the exchange as a generational shift in American politics. Others called it the beginning of the end for the respect your elders no matter what doctrine. The Washington Tribune ran a headline that read, "Clint Eastwood brought a legacy. Jasmine Crockett brought a mirror." But the moment that stuck with people most wasn't the clapback. It was her final words to the camera. "There are girls watching this at home." That hit different. Not flashy, not fiery, just real. One mother from Ohio tweeted a video of her daughter, barely 12, watching the clip and whispering, "She talks like me." That, more than anything, is what caught fire. In homes across the country, conversations sparked, not the loud ones, the quiet ones, between mothers and daughters, grandfathers and grandsons, supervisors and interns. People weren't just debating opinions, they were examining patterns, unspoken rules, the lines they drew without knowing they had. And Clint, he gave one interview the day after, sitting beside a large window in his Monterey ranch. When asked if he regretted what he said, he shrugged. "I spoke from my experience," he said. "If people don't like it, they don't have to listen." But people had listened, closely, and what they took from that moment had less to do with who was right, and everything to do with who finally felt seen. The truth is, no one remembers every segment on a morning political show, but this one stayed, not because someone stormed off, not because of a screaming match or a viral insult. It stayed because it touched something deeper, something people didn't even realize they'd been carrying. In that short, tense exchange, viewers saw their own frustrations at being dismissed, overlooked, silenced. They saw boardroom meetings where they had to explain their worth twice, dinner tables where opinions got brushed aside with a tired laugh, schools and workplaces where they felt the need to tone it down just to keep the peace. Jasmine Crockett didn't say anything revolutionary, she just said it without flinching. That's what made the difference. It wasn't about Eastwood losing an argument, it was about the world shifting, quietly, without asking permission, and what happens when old power finally meets new voice. And that voice doesn't ask to be let in, it pulls up a chair and says, "I'm already here." In interviews weeks later, Jasmine still refused to call it a takedown. "I wasn't trying to destroy anyone," she told the Fort Worth Ledger. "I was just tired of being talked down to." That wasn't about Eastwood, that was about every girl who's ever been told to smile more and speak less. People listened, not just the fans, the critics too. For all the backlash, even some of the harshest voices eventually admitted something had shifted. It wasn't just about who had the better talking points, it was about who held the room without demanding it. Young people across the country wrote essays about that moment. Teachers used it in classrooms. Debate coaches played it for their students. Political science professors broke it down next to historic speeches. Because in between the lines, this wasn't just a political argument, it was a cultural reset. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes, leadership doesn't come with volume, it comes with clarity. Sometimes, you don't change the world by yelling over your opponent. You do it by making them sit with a truth they never had to face before. Jasmine Crockett did more than speak for herself. She gave people permission to be direct without apology, to push back without rage, to be strong and soft in the same sentence, and most of all, to know that calling out the past isn't disrespectful. It's necessary. Clint Eastwood, he didn't vanish. He still had his followers, his films, his weight in American culture. But something about that interview followed him now. Not in shame, but as a reminder that even legends get challenged, and that sometimes legacy means letting go. As for Jasmine, she never once called it a victory. That wasn't the point. The point was being heard without asking twice. And that, more than anything, is what leadership looks like now. If this story made you feel something, even for a second, hit that subscribe button, because stories like this matter, and someone out there needs to hear them.